Hey everyone, we are live at 5 at Broadway.com. It is Tuesday, September 18th. I'm Paul Wontorek.
Are you sure about the date? I'm Beth Stevens.
And over there, we got content producer Caitlin Moynihan.
Hello.
And one of our favorite Broadway songwriters in the history of Broadway is here. Super excited. 3-time Tony winner, Jason Robert Brown.
Whoop, whoop.
Who is, of course, at SubCulture. He has a residency. He has a new album. There's a lot to talk about. We love him. We know you love him. So start putting your questions in the comments section. But first, today's top 5.
A Tony nominee is going to Petah Tikva.
First of all, congratulations on the pronunciation of that place. We're talking about Brandon Uranowitz, who is taking over for John Cariani. Brand Uran. Is doing the natural progression from falsettos as Mendel to Itzik in the band's visit, because it's a natural progression of hair.
Oh, I thought maybe Chip Zion was
Progression of curls.
Okay.
Everyone knows I love Brandon. I love John Cariani, so I'm very excited about this. Brandon begins in the role on October 9th. John Cariani will play his final performance on October 7th. He's obviously an original cast member. And Mr. Uranowitz has been Tony nominated for 2 shows, An American in Paris and Falsettos.
But let's not forget, he was in Baby It's You.
He was in Baby
And
It's
Prince
You.
of Broadway.
And Prince of Broadway. And he gave me a bar mitzvah towel, which is in my office.
And you know who he worked with in Prince of Broadway?
He worked with
JRB. Jason Robert Brown.
Wow.
Okay, well,
Full
thank you.
circle
We're
moment.
just pushing. We're gonna tie everything up.
Tie everything together.
There you go. Thank you.
And the Broadway League has changed its decision on how to honor a Broadway legend.
So this is a great thing. Maren Maisie, of course, died last week. I'm sorry. And Beth and I have been just talking about this a lot. We've been talking about this lighting, this dimming the lights of the marquees is a thing.
And then the selective dimming of the lights. So
and we don't really understand how it works.
No, it's the Broadway League makes their decisions.
They make a decision.
For example, Carol Shelley died recently. She's a Tony winner, and some theaters dimmed their lights.
Right. So they originally announced that some theaters would be, including theaters she's played at. It was a handful of theaters.
It was a handful of theaters.
And the Nederlander, where her husband Jason Daniely is starring in Pretty Woman, and that was going to happen tomorrow, Thursday, right?
It was going to happen on Wednesday, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
And then now they've changed it to Thursday.
Okay.
And first of all, there was an outcry, right?
Everyone was very upset. I think I think that everything sort of got heightened because it was Maren, and we all love Maren, and she's such a part of the community.
And a young person dying.
Yeah. So they made a decision. Now it's every theater marquee. We're not really sure how this works. We're gonna just. I want to know. But they said due to community support, the committee of theater owners have decided to dim the lights of all Broadway theaters. And
As
I know
it should
Alice
be.
Ripley kind of started a lot.
And
of
Audra McDonald.
Oh, yeah.
And Audra McDonald. Yeah. So. Anyway, it's the correct
They're
honor.
doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
And a Broadway favorite has won his first Emmy.
Darren Criss has won an Emmy for work with
The
me on-
assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story.
Thank you, Paul. I knew that you could do that very quickly. Now, of course, Darren Criss was on Broadway and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, for which he won a Broadway.com Audience Choice Award for Favorite Replacement. Then he was in Hedwig, I like to pronounce it with a V, and The Angry Inch, for which he won a Broadway.com Audience Choice Award for Favorite Replacement. Now he is an Emmy winner. He gave a great speech. He said, "Go Blue," because he's a Michigan graduate, and they now rule musical theater.
The show won, too.
Then the show won, too.
Yeah.
And congratulations, Darren. We know you're watching.
And an award-winning play is headed back to the West End.
I'm into this. A Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Yeah.
There's a hyphen in nighttime.
There is, because it's British.
It's coming back. It obviously started in London, came to Broadway. It was a big success. It is starting again at the Piccadilly Theatre on November 29th, opening set for December 11th. Casting is to come. It won every Olivier Award there is. It won every Tony there is. We're very happy. It's a good show.
And a Tony nominee is finally coming back to the New York stage.
Finally.
He's been
Thank
gone
you.
for a minute.
Hashtag welcome home Raul Esparza. He's going to the Classic Stage Company to star in Bertolt Brecht's The Resistible Rise of Arturo Uide, directed by John Doyle, who is the artistic director of Classic Stage Company. Raul is a 4-time Tony nominee. He's been nominated in every acting category. I'm doing it for you. Don't make me say which ones he won for.
You've
I mean, he
agreed.
didn't win for any of which ones he was nominated for. Of course, you may know him from Law & Order SVU.
Right.
Which he was on for quite a while, but we're so excited to have him back on stage. This is a parable about Hitler, and very timely. I'm going to leave it at that. The dates are October 30th, and opening night scheduled for November 14th, and it will run through December 22nd. And I'm sure it's going to be extended because Raul Esparza, but we'll see.
Beth let everybody know in the morning meeting that she loves this play.
She
She's
I love this
super
play.
excited.
I'm super excited.
She's super excited.
And I love Raul Esparza, too.
All right, Beth. time to shift over because Jason Robert Brown is here.
Yes.
Hey, Caitlin, why don't you tell us more about today's guest?
Yes. Guys, today we have acclaimed composer and 3-time Tony winner, Jason Robert Brown, or Notorious JRB. We're starting that. It's happening. He's here with us today. He will be talking about his monthly SubCulture residency and the official CD release of his album, How We React and How We Recover. Brown is known for composing popular Broadway shows like 13, The Bridges of Madison County, Kiss of the Spider Woman, and most recently, Prince of Broadway, and we can't forget the last 5 years. His song cycle, Songs for a New World, was just at Encore's Off Center, and it's going to be preserved on a cast album for us all to enjoy forever and ever. Be sure to follow him on social media at Mr. Robert J. Brown and leave all of your questions for him in the comments down below. Please welcome Robert and Paul. Jason, oh my gosh, I called him Robert.
Bobby
She actually
baby.
switched around my Twitter handle.
Bobby Bobby.
Jason, whoa, yeah, I did, didn't I?
That's Mr. Jason R. Brown.
Mr. Jason R. Brown.
Mr. Jason R. Brown.
I apologize.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right now that I've got my name back.
You got your name back.
Sorry.
Congratulations. Let's just get right to it. I love this album. I've been listening to it.
Thank you.
It's sort of, first of all, you're one of the best songwriters there is, and I love your voice. I love watching you perform, which is why we're going to talk about your concert residency. People enjoy watching you perform. I love Billy Joel, right? I love all those influences that you sort of grew up with, and this is an amazing collection of songs. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for wearing a tie. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a very formal setting.
It is
here.
a set. It's an actual set. David Corns designed it. So it's coming out. I guess it's been available digitally.
Yeah, it came out digitally at the end of June, but the physical copies are now going to be available for you to purchase and use as coasters in your own home.
Well, we were talking about like where do you play these things, these foreign items?
Yes, some people apparently still have machines in which you can
Okay.
play them, but I personally I like to run my finger around the plastic and imagine what it would sound like.
Yeah. How do you feel about hearing your own voice? You're used to hearing very talented singers always perform your work.
I don't. Everyone says that they don't sound like they think they sound. So I now know when I hear myself, I'm like, oh, that must be me because I'm used to that. But it's not what I think I sound like when I'm singing it.
Interesting.
And I tend to think I think I'm a much better singer than I am. I mean, in my head when I'm singing, Jeremy Jordan did my concert last night.
Yeah.
I was like, see, I actually think that's what I sound like when I'm singing, but I know that that is not, in fact, what I sound like because I have heard the recordings for 30 some odd years now. But I think it's probably best for me to continue thinking that I sound that good,
Sure.
or else I would just stop singing altogether.
I like how you sound. So let's talk about SubCulture is a really cool space.
Yes.
You've been performing there for a while, right? Like how long?
Well, 4 years ago, I reached out to them because they had just opened this space, and I needed somewhere to do a concert with Shoshana Bean. She was coming to town.
Right.
She was only going to be here for a day, and so I had heard that this new club had opened with a good sound system. So I called them and I said, "Can you fit us in?" And they said yes. And it was a really mutual love affair that started, because I loved the room so much, and they turned out to be big fans of mine, and they always had wanted me to come in their club. If they ever were going to open a club, they said, "We want Jason Robert Brown," and there I had showed up. So I said, well, how do we make this relationship something that can be ongoing?
Right.
And so starting in December of 2014, I have done one concert every month at the sometimes it's 2 concerts in one night if we sell a lot of tickets.
Like last night.
And so we've now done 41 concerts there, and every show is different. And a large part of what's on How We React and How We Recover is material that was developed at the club, because part of my rule to myself, which I haven't always kept to, but I try, is to do a new song at every show.
Wow.
And so sometimes it's songs from a new show that I'm writing, sometimes it's new songs for the band and for the album. And so I always do that, and we always do a cover of something crazy. I always just try and figure out some song that meant something to me when I was growing up and do that. And last night we actually, Jeremy picked the cover. He did a song by a Scottish singer named Paolo Nutini. But they're always great. I've had, my band is always there, but sometimes we have, I've had shows where we just have 3 musicians. When LaChance did it, it was just me and LaChance and my fiddle player and my bassist. And then when Kelly O'Hara did it, we had, I think, 14 musicians playing with us. And
Wow.
You know, the craziest one was the day after the Tony Awards of 2015. The entire company of Honeymoon in Vegas and the entire orchestra of Honeymoon in Vegas came, and we did the whole show. And the difference was, of course, that, you know, when we did it at the Nederlander, we had all of that space, and we had the stage at SubCulture is about this big,
Yeah.
and we fit all 14 musicians and all 20 some odd actors,
Wow.
and we did it, and it was by far the most fun and the dumbest thing I've ever done.
I love it. So you are Billy Joel. I mean, you're the Billy Joel of SubCulture because he has his residency Midtown.
Yes, there's a difference of scale, but yeah.
But I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
a lot of shows.
I do have better hair.
Absolutely. So you're doing, let's see, you're going to do a show on October 20th, guests to be announced, and November 5th. Those are 2 upcoming dates.
Yes.
But the guests are always incredible, and they can find out on your website.
Yes, and if you're on the mailing list, we always release to the mailing list first, so that people can the people on the mailing list get first crack at it. Because the last 2 shows we did, Cynthia Erivo and Jeremy Jordan were the last 2, and they both sold out after we released to the mailing list, so they never actually went on sale to the general public.
You seem like a real fan of all of these artists. I love that you sort of spotlight these artists, and you get all these amazing people, and they all want to sing your material with you.
Yeah, and it's not just about my material either, but it really is about me getting to make music with people who I think make great music. I want to do that. For me, it's not so much about who's famous or you know, who's going to sell tickets, because there aren't many seats. It doesn't matter about that. There are people who I have a real musical connection to, and you know, when those people can come and sing with me, you know, when I get Joshua Henry to come and show up, you know, that to me is like, that's making music. What Cynthia and Jeremy and Joshua, I mean, virtually everyone who's come, it's just I can make a connection with them that happens because of what I do when I play and what I do when I sing and they sing. And sometimes it's my material, and often as not, it's their own stuff, or, you know, songs that they wanted to sing or made famous or anything like that. It's just, it's been the real, I'd say for the last 4 years, the reason I have sort of been able to still love New York has been that I have this place. And the audience is often, it's the same crowd that comes back show after show. And I think, especially after the election, the thing that has kind of kept me sane and feeling like, you know, there's still a place where people speak sanely and tell truth to each other and welcome each other and believe in the same things I believe in. It's like there's that room at SubCulture, and we get to all sort of, you know, we all go to shul there.
So yeah, when I heard the album was coming and the title, How We React and How We Recover, which is a lyric, right?
It's one of the lyrics from All Things in Time.
Right. And the first song is called Hope, and you wrote it right after the election, right? So I thought, oh, this is going to be really political. But I don't really think it's, do you think it's political? It's not really a political album.
Well, it's not a political album in that
Inspired
it doesn't,
by
you know, the album doesn't say, oh, I hate Trump for, you know, 48 minutes, which I could easily do, and really with great conviction. It's political, I think, in that there is everything on the album does feel like a response to the life we are all living. And part of that is about me being a middle-aged guy who's a father of 2 children and who's been married. You know, that is part of what my world is. And I think even being a white middle-aged guy is itself a political statement. I think you have to be aware of where you are in the world and what that world gives you. There's a song on the album that's called Invisible, and Invisible is not per se a political statement. Michael McElroy had called and said that Broadway Inspirational Voices was doing an outreach with the Ronald McDonald House, and would I write a song for one of the patients at Ronald McDonald House. And so I met Josie, who was a little girl in a very big wheelchair. And her mom said to me after I had met Josie and talked to her, mom said, you know, thank you so much for doing this. I think Josie just doesn't want to be invisible. And I thought, oh, great. And once I wrote the song, then the election happened. And it became so clear that this thing of being invisible was so potent in this time that we're in this country that we're in. And I think, so for that reason, a lot of the songs were not necessarily intended politically in the sense that we call politics, which is electoral politics in the Senate and the Congress and laws, but politics in terms of the way we all have to live with each other, and how do we be polite to each other? What is polite society? How do we respect and hear each other? So I think the album talks to that question a lot.
Do you have any songs? You've written a lot of amazing shows, a lot of amazing songs. Are there any songs that you look at and you go like, wow, I'm really proud I pulled that moment off? Or are there any like sort of songs that you would love to put down as
I
your
tend to
favorites?
be amazed that I have gotten anything written at all. I mean, if I know me, I think, how did you ever finish anything? When Jeremy last night did Shmuel, and Shmuel is 7.5 minutes long, and harmonically it's insanely complicated, and it tells this whole story and all that. And when he came over last week and we rehearsed it, I remember we got to the end of the song and I was like, how did I do that? It seems entirely unlikely that I was not just capable but motivated to do
Yeah.
it. So so the short answer to your question is pretty much anything. I can't believe that I did that. But the closing number on the album is a song called "Wait Till You See What's Next."
I'm so glad you recorded this, by the way, because I heard it was in Prince of Broadway.
Yeah, exactly.
In the original version.
And the challenge for Prince of Broadway was to write a song that could theoretically come out of Hal's mouth. He wasn't ever going to sing it, but the idea was that it was supposed to be his voice. And I thought, how do I write a song that Hal Prince would sing? And how do I make it something that feels genuine to me? And how do I say anything that I want to say and that Hal would want to say? And Wait Till You See What's Next turned out to be this sort of glorious amalgam of his philosophy, which I find so inspiring and so powerful, coupled with my own sort of crazy, neurotic, Jewishness, all just sort of piled into one song. And when they sang it on stage, I wasn't ever sure it was going to make it to Broadway if that was the show, because I could tell it was tonally very different from the way the rest of the show worked. But in terms of my accomplishment, I thought, I'm very proud of what that is. It feels like the best possible tribute I could have paid to Hal, and at the same time, it's also just a song that I love, and I love when I get to sing it, that I get to say that to the world. It's not something I think I've ever said in my life, and yet I feel like I can own it. It's, Hal gave me the gift of this particular optimistic outlook. It's a real gift.
And it's a good bop, as the kids say.
It is, apparently.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is a good bop, and it like captures that sort of 60s musical comedy flavor.
Well, that was, Hal said he wanted something that sounded really contemporary, and I thought he doesn't want something that sounds really contemporary. So I decided to go with like contemporary 1972. And I thought so that's what
Love
that was.
it.
I love that.
Parade, I just want to ask you about Parade. People often come in here, and Parade is such a beautiful score. People come in here and often dream, they say, I want to do Parade. It comes up a lot as, dream roles. Who do you want to do Parade?
Whoever wants to, anybody. I
just
don't
do Parade.
Yeah, just anyone.
Yeah, we got to bring Parade back.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we flirted with that great concert.
Yeah, no, which was Jeremy and Laura
and Laura.
Benanti and
Yeah.
Joshua Henry. I have long known that Jesse Eisenberg loves Parade. He said it's his favorite musical. And Jesse, who I don't know, but he actually came over to my apartment once and sang through the entire score of Parade.
Where were you?
I was there.
Oh, okay, you were there.
I met him, but that's it. That's the entirety of our relationship consists of basically that day and a couple of emails. And our hope was that this was going to lead to the Jesse Eisenberg production of Parade.
Yeah.
And that just hasn't happened yet,
Oh.
Jesse. So it is still my hope that before he loses all of his teeth and begins using a walker, that he would say, you know what, the hell with this movie stuff. I want to go,
Parade.
I want Ben Brantley to dismiss my talents, is what I really want. So let's go and do that. So
What about a movie of Parade?
Sure, if Jesse wants to do that, that's fine too. We
could
could
do
do a
that.
movie. That's
You
great.
just have to do it once.
That would be great.
What about, final question that I
Anytime.
have before we get to the
It's
fans?
fine.
How many productions
Jason
of last
at
5 years?
JasonRobertBrown.com. You can just, and we'll just take care of that. That'll be fine.
How many productions of
Do a
last
movie.
5
It
years
can
are
be an
currently
independent
happening?
thing, or it could be a large studio
Right
project.
now.
It doesn't have to be, we could also do it at a community theater if you would
Anywhere.
like. It could be.
We could do it here on this
I believe Butte, Montana has a wonderful community theater that could do Parade starring Jesse Eisenberg. You could do it under a pseudonym if you would like. We could just do it that way. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Last 5 years. It's
Yes.
a popular show. People like it.
I've heard of it,
People
yes.
dig it. How many productions do you think are happening right now? And do you know at all times?
Well,
do you have
it's only 5:30 in the afternoon, so I would gather not many.
I mean, like in rehearsal performance. I mean, you just must. Do you sit there on YouTube and just look at all these clips?
I
and-
do not sit there on YouTube and look at these clips.
you don't do what I
I can
do?
assure you of that. No. There was a time when I actually went to see every production of 13 because I wanted to see what it did in the world and how it sort of functioned and what it felt like and looked like. But the last 5 years was always such a personal piece to me that I didn't really, it's not a comfortable show for me to watch, even when it's really great. But there are a lot of productions. There are probably between now and the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if there were, 100 productions of it happening. But that's just me guessing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself, like I do, singing the score of Bridges of Madison County at full volume with Kelly and Steven in a car, like driving through it in the night, like drive with the windows open? Do you ever do that?
I don't, because I'm always in the car with my wife and kids, and
They wouldn't like that.
that would not fly.
You and
In
Georgia
fact,
don't,
my
Georgia don't do the
no, because the kids are always they make me listen to Dear Evan Hansen, so I don't get to pick the music in the car.
I love it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been hogging him. What do people want to know?
Oh, people want to know a lot of things.
Are there really? Are there a lot of
Yes,
course.
there are. So,
I'm going to be
They're all
very
doing last
candid.
5 years.
yeah. Well, Kieran says your music is so
Kieran.
recognizable and unique, and you're an inspiration to up-and-coming composers. Who are some of the composers you were inspired by when you were first getting started?
Leonard Bernstein, it seems appropriate to mention this year of his centenary. So certainly Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim, obviously. And then I think Billy Joel is always the name that comes up. But to me, that's sort of so elemental that I don't even recognize it anymore. I feel like, oh, of course, Billy Joel, that's, But the ones that, when I started getting really conscious of people who I was like, I want to listen to that, I want to listen to that, it was Joni Mitchell, I think was a really strong. Paul Simon was a very, very strong influence on me. Carole King was very, very strong, and Stevie Wonder. And I think you put those things together and you start getting at what my DNA is. It's somewhere around there.
Cool. Yeah. Elise asks, what is your first reaction when you see a show that you've written the music for come together for the first time?
My first reaction is usually I run out of the room and start rewriting as fast as possible.
At least he's honest. Okay. So David asks, what current theater composers that you enjoy listening to?
What current theater composer? I always think Yazbek is sensational. He's always been
Finally
great.
won a Tony.
And finally won a Tony, and I hear Tootsie's great also. Adam Gettle is that to me. There's so much music in what he does. He's just the most gloriously musical composer in the world. So he's great. I love Tom Kitt. Personally, and his work I think is just great. There's a woman named Georgia Stitt who I think is just a sensational Broadway composer, and I love the work she does.
Amazing.
Who you married and made a family with.
I did, yes. Incidentally.
Yeah, incidentally.
Just so happens to be that way. Alec asks, which song or show of yours means the most to you and why?
Which song or show of mine means the most to me and why, he said, taking up time so he could try and formulate an appropriate answer. I don't know. In the same way that you always talk about how you can't pick your favorite child, I mean, the obvious answer that I like is whatever the next thing is. I mean, I'm working very hard to try and figure out what my next things are musically. I mean, I'm writing projects now, and in trying to crack them and trying to understand them, that's where my head is. So even like last night when I was doing the concert with Jeremy, we did a lot of stuff from last 5 years, and we did some stuff from Parade and stuff from Songs for a New World. And it's always fun for me to go back into those, but they feel like that was this other guy who wrote them. And this guy now who's writing wants to deal with the stuff that he's writing right now. I think that's just what being a writer is about.
I love that the tonally your shows are so different. You know what I mean? Like
It's very deliberate, yeah.
Yeah, Bridges of Madison County was so like lushly romantic, and then like
Honeymoon in Vegas was not. Yes.
Honeymoon in Vegas was like musical comedy. You know what I mean? So do you ever think like I want to live in a world like this? Does that help?
That's literally what makes me choose a project. Is it's a world that musically I want to feel like I can live in for a long time, because you do. And if I feel like I've already lived in it, then I probably don't want to do it again. You know.
Cool. We can do, let's do one more question. David said, I love your Bridges of Madison County. What inspired you to musicalize the story?
I got paid. Honestly, Marcia Norman and I got sounded out by Robert James Waller's agent, and it was, would you be interested? And my first response was no, because I thought the book was dopey, and I was like, I'm not going to do that.
What did you think of the movie? Because I liked the movie.
I only saw about 10 minutes of the movie, so I can't tell. But Marcia then came to L.A., where I was living at the time, and she said, I have a plan. And she says, I think there is something in this book. And I said, if you think there is, then I'll go down that road with you. And she then told me the story that she thought this book told that was sort of hidden in the book. And I thought it was so beautiful, and I wanted to sign on to that. So really all credit to Marcia, who discovered that story hidden inside the sort of muck of that book. And then, who knows whatever makes music come out of something to me. But the minute Marcia started talking, I heard it. I could hear what that show sounded like. And they were people who longed, and they were people who needed to sing. And I wanted to hear what that sounded like.
People say that mediocre source material is a good thing.
I guess
Like it
it's a
needs to be
challenge.
improved on, or-
I get it's a challenge. Perfect source material is probably insane, but I don't know what perfect source material would be. I can see why a Gone with the Wind musical would be really just setting yourself up for trouble. It's like there's already a Star Wars musical, which I worked on one with Charlie Strauss once. But I can see why that's like, you don't need that. There's already a perfect version of that. But I think this idea that there are stories that need to be told, and you just have to find the right form for them. What is the way that this story needs to be told? And if it needs to be told on stage, and if it needs to be told on the musical stage, then how does that work? What needs to happen? And I think The Band's Visit is a beautiful example of a show that the movie is a very specific movie, and the show is a very specific show. And they have the same plot, but they don't tell the same story. And I think that is a really beautiful adaptation from one place to another. I think you could argue that the movie is a perfect movie in a way, but the show chooses to sort of take it in this direction, and by doing it, it becomes its own perfect musical.
Right. Amazing. Cool. Anything else? I think we've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for matching the set with your shirt.
I do what I can.
Everyone, see this guy at SubCulture with amazing guests to be announced October 20th and November 5th down at SubCulture. It is a really cool space. You feel cool just being there.
Yes, well, I do. Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what's next. I can't wait to see which show you decide to live in for a while. And of course, the CD, How We React and How We Recover, you can go listen to it immediately, or you can go get the hard copy at Target on September 28th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Caitlin, why don't you take us out?
Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We are live at 5 every single day on Facebook. You can listen to this interview in a podcast version for searching for #live@5 and hitting that subscribe button. Be sure to tune in tomorrow when we talk to Andrew Simonsky of the First National Tour of Come From Away.